my name is Victoria Turner. This is my dog Kai, and for the past few weeks we've been doing some clicker training. Now the first thing that we learned together was conditioning the clicker. So when you condition a clicker, you pair a secondary stimulus with a primary stimulus. For Kai, the primary stimulus is a treat. And he knows that when he hears this, he gets a treat. Treats can be anything from soft pieces of kibble to, in this case, pieces of cheese that Kai absolutely loves. Good boy, Kai. Right now, I'm just showing you that Kai knows when he hears the click, he gets a treat. So we have the primary reinforcer, the cheese, and we have the secondary reinforcer, the clicker. And at first when we condition the clicker, I would click several times and give a treat until Kai learned, okay, that's what the click means. When a Kai performs a cue, the click means, yes, I've done this right and a treat is going to be coming to me. The next part of our training we did was free shaping. Free shaping is when you take something that your dog already does, like if you see them sit or lie down, and you click. For Kai, it was a sit. Kai sits all the time, as a lot of dogs do, so this was pretty easy, and I'm going to show you now Kai's shape behavior. Now you see there, Kai did it without me even telling him what to do. As you free shape, you're going to see your dog do things that they would already do on their own, and you're just going to click for them. But I also have a cue that I will use for Kai. I have a verbal one. Kai, sit. Good. I also have a visual cue that I use for Kai. Targeting is something that Kai and I have had a lot of problems with in the past because we adopted Kai from a very abusive family. They not only physically abused him, but they also verbally abused him. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but it was very sad. We picked up Kai when he was about a month or so old. He's 5 years old now, but he still has a lot of problems getting over all the abuse he went through. Now, one of the things that Kai had a lot of problems with was targeting. And in targeting, you teach your dog to touch an object. It could be your hand, it could be a pencil, it could be really anything you want to. Agility dogs are taught to touch a square on the floor as a start marker. You can teach your dog to sit using a targeting. You can teach them to follow you. You can even teach them to ring a bell to open a door. Targeting has a lot of great uses for training. Now for Kai, unfortunately, because of his abuse, when he sees an open hand or an object in my hand, it could be anything, he thinks that, okay, I'm going to get hit in some way with this, so I should run away. He does nervous circles, he does pacing, which you might see here as we try to do it. He will do targeting about half the time now since I've been socializing and using differential reinforcement with him and getting him to just be more comfortable around me in general. We're going to try targeting and see if he does it. Kai, touch. Kai. Now Kai likes it best when I crouch. Touch. Good boy. Kai. Touch. You see how he turns his head away? He does not want to see my hand. So he will only do targeting about half the time. Now once Kai started performing his shape behavior reliably, I started to add a cue. You don't want to add a cue too early because you'll confuse the dog and you might have a lot of trouble trying to get them to learn the cue. Kai has a cue for several of his tricks. They're both verbal and visual. One of them is going to be his speak trick. And here is the visual. Kai. Here is the verbal. Kai, speak. Kai also knows the verbal and visual cues for down. Kai. Kai, down. Good boy. Now a cue should be added as your dog is doing the trick very reliably. Now, if Kai were to sit on the first try, and I would say sit, and if I just tried to use that cue, he probably wouldn't know what to do because he hasn't done it enough. So as Kai would learn to sit, I would eventually start saying, sit. And that's how Kai knows that without me even using my hands as a visual cue, that he knows how to sit. Kai also knows the cue for up and off, which I'm going to show you right now. Up. Off. Good boy. Once your dog gets really good at doing their tricks, you might find that they become a little bit lazy. So partial reinforcement is a great way to break this bit of laziness. In partial reinforcement, you don't reinforce the dog every single time they receive a treat. So it's not, Kai, I'm going to click and you're going to get a treat. Instead, it is, I'm going to click, and that means you've done it right, but you don't get a treat right now. You might get a treat on the second or third time, but not one after the other. And when you give a treat every time afterwards, it's called continuous reinforcement. In partial reinforcement, you could do it every other time or every 2 or 3 times. If you do it every second trick, that's called a twofer. Every third trick is called a threefer. And when you get to the point where it could be many number of times, it could be after 1 time, it could be after 4 times, that's called variable reinforcement because your dog does not know, okay, how many times will I have to do this trick to get the treat? And it really is great for keeping them on their toes. I'm going to show you partial reinforcement right now. Sit. Right down. Kai, speak. That was a threefer. Kai performed 3 tricks before he was able to get a treat, and that's an example of partial reinforcement. Now, another important part of training is something called extinction. This is when you have a behavior that your dog performs, but you may not really like when he does it. It may be something like howling when a person arrives in the house, jumping up on you when you get home, and in extinction, you just do not reward the behavior at all. Now, one of Kai's behaviors that we decided to extinct was him clawing at the door when he wants in. And Kai no longer does that anymore. Normally, if he saw me by the door right now, and he knew that I was about to go in, he would immediately start clawing it like, I am so excited to go inside right now because he spends a lot of time outside because he's a farm dog. And Kai no longer does that anymore. And then we bumped it up another step and we decided to use differential reinforcement. And in differential reinforcement, you decrease unwanted behaviors and you increase wanted ones. Now for Kai, instead of not only scratching at the door, I wanted him to sit before I would even let him in. And I replaced his bad behavior of scratching with a good one, in addition to the extinction that we learned. Now Kai knows he's only allowed to come inside when he sits. Kai. Very good. Didn't even want the treat, just wants to go inside. Okay. The behavior that Kai and I worked on was generalization. And in generalization, you want to be able to have your dog perform all of their cues in all different kinds of settings. Kai is a farm dog, so he is typically limited to the farm. He also gets really anxious around other people and animals because he was not properly socialized as a puppy. So instead, Kai and I moved all around the farm. And actually, this is our first time in the garage. Usually we're outside, but here in Maryland, we're actually expecting a hurricane right now, so it is really terrible outside right now. So this is actually a good example of generalization. Kai and I have never trained inside the garage before this time. And as you can see, Kai performs all of his behaviors very well. We have also trained out in the barn together, out in the open field together, in the kitchen, in my office, and Kai does great in all the settings. We also perform the behavior when my other dog is around, Lizzie, who is a very rambunctious puppy. And he still performs all of his behaviors, sometimes even more reliably. Sometimes I wonder if he's trying to teach her a lesson in obedience. So when you generalize a behavior, you just want to make sure that your dog doesn't have what's called a living room effect, which is, oh, my dog can perform this trick really well at home, but when I take him anywhere else, he won't listen to me. So you should try to take your dog to different places when you're performing generalization. Go to a dog park, go over to a friend's house, go somewhere where there are a bunch of people. Of course, you have to lower your expectations. Kind of go back to kindergarten with your dogs. There's so many stimuli that it's going to be hard for them to concentrate on you some of the time. Now the last set of behaviors that I want to train Cai are going to be something called a behavioral chain. A behavioral chain is when you take multiple tricks or behaviors and you chain them all together, but you only use one cue. In order to train Cai to use the carriage, I had to do something called back chaining, which is when you train the last behavior. In other words, you're training the final behavior that you want from the dog. And the first step for us was for me to physically take Cai and put him in the carriage. Now, he hated this at first. He kept jumping down. But as soon as I put him in the carriage, I would click and treat, or CT, as soon as I could. Eventually, Cai began to associate, oh, if I stay in the carriage, I get a treat. The next part was to get him to sit inside of the carriage and to actually stay in there. So I guess you could say that was the next two things we had to do. So Cai figured out that when he stayed inside the carriage and he received treats, he had no problem performing his sit cue. And after that, we worked on getting him to stay there. Now, going all the way back from our last behavior, our second to last, our third to last, and our first behavior that we want. The first one was to get Cai to jump up into the carriage, and that is the last one that we trained. And that is the method of back chaining. Finally, we strung all the behaviors together to form the chain that we gave the cue of walk. And we're going to show that to you now. I'm going to turn it to the side so you can see better. Cai, walk. So Cai comes up, he's sitting, and if I want to, Cai will also actually let me zip him in, and this way it keeps him comfortable and it keeps him safe. It makes him feel good when we go on walks. I think he feels less anxious. He tends to shake a little bit unless he is zipped in, but right now since we're inside, I'm just going to show it to you with this down. Do you see how Cai will stay inside? It doesn't matter where we go. We walk around the entire block in this, and it's wonderful. Cai will stay unless I tell him to get down. Normally, we would have a walk every night, but since the hurricane is coming in, we can't do any of our walks together, which is a bit sad. And I still try to stroll him around a little bit in it. And that concludes our training video, and we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have enjoyed learning together for the past 5 weeks. And Cai and I will no doubt continue to learn together. He is still a young dog with a lot to give. I have seen him excel in not only his confidence, but in his socialization. I could never have pet him like this before, the way he's letting me do this now. So we will no doubt continue on this journey together, and we hope you enjoy watching. Thank you. Something else a little fun that I wanted to show you was when I was reading through Cai and I's book on cat training, I read that cats will sometimes learn better when they are taught together. You may be training one cat and the other decides to jump in. Well, that's exactly what happened here when I was training Cai. His little sister Lizzie, who is also a Pomeranian, she's only 1 year old, she's still quite the puppy, who is impossible to train otherwise because she is so unfocused, decided, hey, you're getting treats, why aren't I getting treats? And suddenly started performing all of the cues that Cai was. So I'm going to show you a little bit right now how she jumps in. Cai, sit. Good boy. Cai's a little bit tired of treats at this point. Lizzie, come here. Sit. Good girl. Speak. know you don't know Lizzie, but this is pretty incredible for her not to be bouncing off the walls right now. And I thought this was just so cool, seeing both Lizzie and Kai perform tricks together. I'm going to go ahead and treat because they're still in their downs. Lizzie also performs some other tricks that Kai doesn't perform. Very good. So pretty. Lizzie, come here. Lizzie likes to mouth off to me a lot. And Lizzie knows the cue for sit pretty. She's done sit pretty a lot. But sometimes she likes to argue with me a little